Hi, welcome. It is time for another Ask Me Anything. I'm excited to be here. Sorry for the delay for anybody who was trying to join right at noon. We had a little technical difficulty, but I think it is now resolved. This is going to be recorded also on YouTube and in the Raising Our Resilience parent group. For those of you who were not able to join it on time, the recording will be there for you. So we've got some great topics to check out today, friends. And really looking forward to being able to support each and every one of you with these topics. In order to do that, I'm also going to be going live on Facebook. So just give me a moment. I will be sending that request. And while that's going, just I want you to take a moment to think about, is there something that you yourself would like support with if this wasn't, if your question isn't already up for coaching today? What, if anything, if you could like wave a magic wand and, have your parenting life go more smoothly, like what would that be? And what would you like support with on that today? It could be something to do around emotional resilience, motivating kids with less rewards and punishments, helping the whole family system run more smoothly with clear expectations and great running routines, maybe helping your siblings with conflict resolution, or even for yourself, the adults in the household with conflict resolution. There's so many possibilities here. And the reason I bring up those in particular are those are the things that I love helping parents with, and we've had great success supporting our clients and our community members about, on these topics. All right, so we are now live on Facebook. Welcome to your Ask Me Anything. We're so glad you're here. And we're going to get started with this really great question about physical tantrums and managing boundaries. So I'm going to just speak to that first, and then bring in the little nuance of having a sensory-seeking older child as an ingredient in the mix. So this question, by the way, is was Laura's. And we want to make sure we tag Laura. There we go. So she can find this. So great question. Managing boundaries and physical tantrums is one of the more difficult things that parents and caregivers find themselves, more difficult situations that parents and caregivers find themselves. And, I've seen this in classrooms, in homes. I just did a home visit where this was one of the things that the folks wanted to work on. And one of the things I can say is, kids know whether or not you can stand behind the limit or the boundary. They are constantly testing that, and they know if you are not 100% sure why it exists, if your rationale isn't rock solid. They can tell if you're not able to follow through. Then they might push harder because they know that they can sort of get what they want without a consequence or without too much recourse. So the most important thing we can do as caregivers when it comes to boundaries and managing them is to get crystal clear on what is the boundary. And it's not just what not to do, but it's what to do. So asking for what you do want, right? So it's like we use gentle hands and words in our family versus we don't hit. Asking for what you do want, knowing why it exists. What is the value or the reason or the rationale behind this boundary? Can you say it in 10 words or less? Or is it still a long, kind of drawn out lecture on, being a good person and how this makes you a better person too, and, kindness and everything? Does it go on and on, or can you say it in a punchy 10 word or less sentence? And then last but not least, are you role modeling these boundaries too? So if you're asking a child to not be on their device much, but you're always on your phone, sends a mixed message, for example. There's always a better middle ground you can reach where, yeah, I do use my device more because I have more responsibility. So I'll be doing things like checking the weather, checking for text messages from the other co-parent, making sure that all of the business boxes are checked for the day. And you can include your kids in that if it needs to be out of balance. So go ahead and do that. Back to boundaries. So do you know what it is in the positive, the affirmative of what you do want? Do you know why it exists? Can you explain that in 10 words or less, your rationale? And do you role model it as well? Are you an example, even a shining example of following this boundary? And I want to make sure that when I say shining, you don't think of perfection. So it's not like I'm polished, I'm all done, I have no smudges, I make no mistakes. No, I say there's no such thing as a perfect person or a perfect parent. So let's throw that idea away. And set it aside. But what I do mean is that you are a human being in progress who's continuing to put an effort towards this goal of following this boundary and doing your best to meet it, and being real when you can't, and asking for help when you're struggling, and thinking out loud, man, I really want to have another cookie. I'm going to take a few breaths and walk away instead, and maybe drink a glass of water. Sometimes it's not easy in resisting sweets. Great role model, right? It's real, rather than like having this internal dialogue of don't eat the cookie because the kids will see, and then you kind of weirdly walk away. Like, help them know what it is that you struggle with, help them see examples of things that they struggle with, that you could show them kind of like a pathway to how to not struggle as much with kind of living up to the expectations of the group. Okay. Physical tantrums is one of the boundary setting moments that is sometimes the hardest, because now your body might need to get involved in a way where you might get hurt. They might even get hurt or hurt themselves. It's very escalating. It can be incredibly triggering. I think, though, that this is one of those that we, the more crystal clear we can be about that like using your hands and your body to try and solve problems is not okay when there is an option to use words, right? So like with your family members who you love and respect, who are trusted adults, with your siblings who you're trying to figure things out with, there's usually 99% of the time another option. And what I want to say about physical tantrums is oftentimes their lid is flipped, they're out of control, they don't know what to say or do because that part of their brain is not functioning very well, and they need to get that lid back on. And so the most important thing you can do is help your kids identify coping strategies that work. And what I mean by work, it works for them. And it might look different than what you use. That's why I offer up trainings on 6 different strategies for finding your calm in the moment. For example, finding your calm in the chaos is what it's been called. 6 different options. Just recently, I released a video with all 6 different breaths that you can try in the moment that could really help you get that lid back on. But breathing tools may not be even the tool for your kid. So be willing to be in the discovery process and actively looking for those coping tools that will put that lid back on. And sometimes it means getting space between the two of you. It means, move it or lose it, right? Go move your body, let out the tension, then come back. Physical tantrums are usually a sign that the body is really heightened and there is energy moving into the hands and feet and into the face and into the voice, potentially. And lids need to come back on. And it's not always a calming breath that works, but keep seeking for something that does work for every single one of your family members, and make it okay that each of you has a different path to getting calm. Because what they may not like is you telling them to do the thing that you like to do. What they may expect is for you to do what they're doing. And you really need to kind of nuance that. Now, Laura, with your sensory seeking older child, you're going to very particularly going to need to have a lot of language and vocabulary around the sensory seeking part. What is this? Make it akin to having a sensory diet. Like, there's things that inputs that they need, and how can we build those into the routine? How can we use them in the moment when things are starting to get tense, lids are half off or all the way off, and make it a normal thing that you do to practice those kinds of coping tools outside of the limit setting moment, outside of the tantruming moment, so that it becomes like muscle memory. It's like just something that they know, it's their go-to. And guess who needs to do that too? Us, the adults. You need to do it too. Sometimes when kids are resistant to trying coping tools, to building them in, to talking about them, to using them in the moment, the only thing we have control over is ourselves. So if we are able to go ahead and model all of this, what I've seen is that it does rub off on the kids. They do absorb it over time. I've had many, many moms and dads and other caregivers just model a coping tool at 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. And eventually one of them sticks with their kid, even if they weren't willing to try it. They weren't willing to practice it. They weren't willing to do it. It's because in the environment, there's this model of it that they're absorbing. Because kids can learn 10 to 100 times more by what we show them than what we just tell them verbally. Okay. And think about how much you're working against their learning if you're modeling the opposite of what you want or need. Yeah. Okay. We have 7 people watching on Facebook, tuning in. Please drop a hello and where you're tuning in from in the comments. Just say hi and let us know where you're tuning in from. Like for me, I'll say hi, El Cerrito, California, which is near San Francisco, near SF. Let us know who's, and that way we can say hello and I can see who's here. That'd be a great help. Thank you. It's always better when I have people here. So way to show up and people that I can talk to about what's going on. It also will help you kind of get warm up to the idea of actually dropping a question in the comment in the chat. Okay. If you're here live, this is a great opportunity for you to get direct coaching that usually only my clients have. So good, Laura's here. So Laura, let us know from Livermore. How did that land with you? What I just shared with you. We've got Catalina. Nice. So glad you're here. Catalina from Texas, Catalin from Texas. Nice. And then we have Priscilla from Alamo, California. Excellent. Way to show up, y'all. Seriously. And let me know if there's anything that stands out to you or if you have a follow-up question. Terry's here, one of our clients in the immersion program and from Berkeley. Yay, Terry. Way to be here. Elizabeth, an alum from Oakland. Yes, we love this. So good. So continuing on the tantrum piece and about our own patients, Iti and An have a question about that. They want to know about how to deal with tantrums and learn to be very patient. So back to the tantrum piece. One thing I shared with you last week, I want you to just maybe review if you haven't yet, go back to the video from last week on the YouTube channel or in the Facebook group, are some mistakes to avoid during your child's tantrum. I'm going to review them right now, but I want you to have a more in-depth look if this pertains to you, especially Iti and An. Okay. Go ahead and check that out. So the first one is don't pick a fight with a feeling. Okay. Feelings have a message behind them and that message wants to get through. I say all behavior is communication. So please do go ahead. Yes. And find a way to find one thing that makes sense about what this emotion is and what's coming up for them, and find a way to validate it enough so they don't feel like you're picking a fight with their feeling. In other words, making their feeling wrong somehow. Okay. Do a really good job of this and you will win your child's trust and mutual respect quicker than any other thing I've seen. Okay. So that's number one. Another tip I can give you is that if you can find a way to actually help them communicate the message that's coming through by finding one thing that makes sense, but really getting to the bottom of it. Oh, so when your brother touches your stuff, that's really frustrating to you. And then your body wants to hit him. Your hand just starts to go for him. Is that right? Gosh, yeah, I can see why that might happen. Our lids can flip so quickly. When you start to go into that space, it actually helps them to see you as a viable thought partner for what could help them through this tantrum, what could help them through this big emotion. How many of you know, like, you would seek out somebody who gets it much more as a viable thought partner, someone who could help you get through and cope with a difficult time than someone who you think does not get it, right? How many of you, the last thing you want to hear from a child or from another, caregiver, someone who you want to be there for, saying to you, you just don't get it, mom, you just don't get it. Oof, right? So let's do the opposite of that. Let's show them how we get it, okay? So the other thing we want to avoid, next tip, is to misread how upset a child is and not take the time to observe first and see how far off is their lid. How upset are they, 0 to 10? If they're in the 5+ range, you've got to have a different strategy than if they're at a lower level of upset. So look for the signs, the tells of how upset your kids are. Really get to know them and become what I call a good lid detector, where you can see how far is their lid off. And then when they're at that 5 and higher, you're going to use strategies to just empathize, soothe, calm down, and get that lid back on. Number one priority, whatever it takes. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to back off on an expectation and put yourself in harm's way. You're not going to continue to let your kid hit you, But you might say, we need to go to another room and insist that they get away from whatever's triggering them. You might insist that we're going to go outside now. Yeah, no, we can't be inside. Outside's the only option. Here we go, right? And move them towards something that's going to distract them, help them move it or lose it, help them to be in an environment where they can't hurt another person. Whatever needs to happen, do act, and you might need to choose for them after laying out very simple choices. Are you ready to put your hands in my hands, or do I need to hold them for you? Or would you like to put them in your pockets? Maybe that's it, right? Oh, sweetie, I can see that you're not ready to calm your hands, so I'll need to hold them for you. Is that right? Last chance. I can do it. And they stop, or they keep going. Okay, I'm holding your hands now, and I'm also going to help us move to another space where things are a little calmer. Right? So like, you get to build in choices along the way and support them, and then empathize the whole way. You're being, oh, sweet, I know it can be so hard when you don't get what you want. That can be really tough. I know it can really flip your lid, sweetheart. I get it. I don't like it when I don't get what I want either. And you're still moving them to this calmer space. So you can combine tip 1 and tip 2. All right. Tip 3, because you know what we all do? We all talk to upset brains as if they're calm, and it doesn't work, friends. Or if it does, it's rare, and it's worth trying once or twice. But if you keep going down that road, they're just going to get more upset. So help them get that calm back, and then talk to them as a rational human being again, who might have some self-control, might be able to think through consequences, might have a sense of time, and all the things that come back once we are de-escalated and down-regulated and that lid is back on. Okay. All right. Last but not least, please avoid telling your kid to do something you're not willing to do yourself. Please do model. We talked about this just now with an answer to Laura's question. Please do that. Laura also likes to add in, we love the mantra of we use gentle hands and words in this family. Definitely going to use that. Yes, good. Okay. Also working on speaking out loud our own internal dialogue in challenging moments. Laura, these are 2 really good ones you pulled already. Nice. Any others that you're hearing that you really like? Let's all take notes together and help each other out. Okay. What are your standout tips? What are your takeaways? What are you going to try next? Anything like that? Pop it in the chat. It'll be really helpful to everybody. Thanks, Laura, for getting that started. So Iti and An, let us know if there's anything else that you really would like help with on that. Now, on the stay calm part, I have another question I want to kind of fold in here while we talk about it. It's from Tony. And Tony, it's just so important that we acknowledge when we have had our own trauma and our own anxiety triggers. So I'm really proud of you and excited that you were willing to share this with us, and let us chat about this today and support you. So when we have our own triggers, or if we're having a hard time staying calm, so this goes back to our being patient, to An and Iti's question. And Laura, I bet this pertains to you too, because physical tantrums are upsetting, especially with an older child. We absolutely need, and I just said this to another family this morning who I was coaching, in order for us to be a resource for others, we need to be resourced. And so that means we do need to do things like work through the past traumas and anxiety that might be present with us, the worried thinking that might be present with us because of that past anxiety or that past trauma, and also work through our triggers as we go. Now, it's nice and easy to just say, work through your triggers, right? But it's actually tends to be a process where you repattern your nervous system response to difficult situations. And one of the first things that I always like to teach folks that you need to be aware of are mirror neurons. You might already know about them, but like the impact of mirror neurons is not to be underestimated. So when we are encountering another person's nervous system who is experiencing a strong emotion, we pick up on their body language, their tone of voice, their facial cues, and we mirror that. Part of our brain mirrors what we see and what we perceive. And if those of you who are sensitive to what might be called like vibes or energy, you can even kind of like pick up on it like a tuning fork, right? So you start to kind of vibrate at their same intensity. When that's going on, awareness is number 1. We have to be aware and name what's happening. Otherwise, it's just something that's happening to us and not something we can do something about. Language is really powerful. I think it was Rumi who said, emotions are the ocean, language is the shore. I know Brene Brown likes to use that quote a lot. So having the ability to name what is impacting you and how it's impacting you and feeling it in your body so that you can then next tune into what you need is like the name of the game, friends. In terms of being that calm nervous system that your child can co-regulate with. Okay. So practice noticing in your body, like, where am I feeling this emotion? Where am I starting to add tension, or where am I starting to shut down and numb out? Where do I feel it in my body? And then do something for that part of your body. Now, it might be, I need to put my hand on my heart and just like fill my chest with a slower breath because my heart is racing. And you might even pull out some of your breaths from things you've learned here or in other places. I know for me, I tend to bring a lot of tension to my throat. So I've been really enjoying things like the lion's breath, where you go and like let out a sound and let your tongue hang out. And it kind of just opens up this whole throat area. Maybe for you, it's like, I need to get out of noise and into some quiet. So I need a break and I'm going to reset and come back. That's very important for us to acknowledge. I have a mom in my life who's like, who's one of my clients who's really sensitive to noise. And if she's around consistent, intense noise, like it's really hard for her to reset. So she just has to step away, and she's made that okay with her kids and her partner. And they all get it because she can speak to it with awareness. It's not, you are all being too loud. It's, I need a moment of quiet. I'll be right back, kind of thing. So there's that, the mirror neurons piece, being aware of that, being aware of how we're impacted, that it's not a choice. Usually it's automatic. That's what a trigger is. And also we need to update our perception database of how threatening is the situation. So a child screaming used to make me panic and sweat immediately and want to shut it down as quickly as possible because it was painful to be around. I had to update my perception database. In other words, my perception of how I'm going to interpret a child screaming as, uh-oh, they need my help and I need to find a way to stay calm. And also, uh-oh, I made this child upset. I guess this is a tough lesson for them. And I'm going to really need to dig deep and be steady for them while they're learning. See how that shifts things? Like there's purpose behind the cry. There's interpretation of my role as like, I can do something, I can be something, I can be helpful. And it's not so much the scream is happening at me, this child is doing this to me, why are you making my day so hard? It's sort of like, this is what happens in childhood. I'm playing a role. There's a role, there's something I can do in this role that might be helpful. I'm going to try. And also take care of me at the same time, right? Terry says, I think one of the reasons that her 4-year-old comes to her first is because she does get his feelings nice, right? And this is speaking to what you're talking about, Terry. The challenging part is that I'm often having a hard time in tandem, right? So I would say, continue to give yourself what you need to model to him what he might need, and let him know that you get it along the way. You're not doing it because you need to because you are wanting to get him to stop. You're actually doing it as an invitation to join you. And how that looks is that kind of side-by-side approach, Terry, where you're like, it's okay, sweetie. Okay, I'm going to just sit right next to you. I'm going to take some breaths. I hope you do too. I'm going to try the roller coaster breath. Maybe, he likes that one better. And he's like, don't do the roller coaster breath, Mommy. He's like, Mommy really needs this right now. Maybe you do too. I'm going to finish. Let me finish. Okay, honey, if you want to just put your hand on my shoulder while you wait, or sit right here, that's fine. But I need this right now. And let him know it feels better. Oh, it feels much better. Mommy's much calmer. As an example. Now, the breathing might just make him crazy. And like, he doesn't want you to do that. And so maybe it's more move it to lose it. Baby, we're going to go over to the other room and we're going to just go like throw a pillow a few times. I need that. I hope you can join me too. And you try. So you're just rotating through the different ones, but you're giving yourself something you need too. So it's mutually beneficial, even if he doesn't want to do it, even if he has a bad reaction to it, you're going to stumble upon, and I really want you, Terry, to keep doing this as your homework. You're going to stumble upon 1, 2, or 3 ways that he will participate. And he'll even start to tell you, Mommy, your lid, I think you need to use a pillow, which I've had 2.5-year-olds even, but usually 3, 4 is when they start to be able to really see what you need and tell you. And that's like such a big step into them using it themselves. Okay. He does, however, get to observe my process of having the feeling and eventually calming down, but it's tough for both of us. So you're on it, Terry. Like, I love it. And I hope you don't mind the review. I hadn't read that part yet. And I just know you're on the path, like stay the course. And yeah, it is tough for both of you. And it's because you both have such like similar emotional maps, right? But that's good news because likely the things that work for you will eventually work for him too. The other thing you might want to do is not wait, and this is for everybody, and this is one of the mistakes to avoid too, is don't wait till the child's upset to introduce calm down strategies. Like be sprinkling those in all the time. Before you get into the car, before you leave the car, as you're settling down into bed. I have this mom who would do the body scan every night, and then the child was able to start going, where am I tense right now? It's like 6-year-old. It's pretty profound. The little one have that much awareness and have tools in their toolbox, right? So these are things we want. These are things we want for our kids. So I want to just go back to, or I want to continue with this big emotions piece. Now we're going to talk about kids who are maybe 7 to 9 and older for the next little segment here. If you have younger kids, keep listening. It's a preview for what's up ahead. If you have older kids, you can look back and see if there's any kind of gaps you want to fill, that maybe things you skipped over that are still relevant. Okay. So I'm just saying, like, even if your kid is past the terrible twos in the toddler stage, or the three-nager stage, and we call these things all different things, and is in like the, even in past the elementary stage and is in middle school, these are things that can still apply because we all have these nervous systems that kind of default to this way of coping, and navigating adversity. So here are two from parents of kids of 7 to 9-year-olds. One says, this is Vitra, that she's struggling with the big emotions of her 7-year-old. How do I navigate these turbulent times? And then Meliana, Anne, and Mandy all want to get their child to focus and listen, that is in between 7 and 9. So we're going to start with, of course, the turbulent times one and the big emotions, only to say, listen to what we've already talked about, because there's a lot of good tips in there. But what's different about a 7 to 9-year-old than like a preschooler or a toddler is that they're often really able, in the time when they're not upset, in little scaffolded steps, if you're not already doing this, okay, don't expect them to leap and suddenly have this really in-depth conversation. But there are very strategic ways to get them interested in emotions. And this is something I teach to all my immersion clients. We do it over a 3-day virtual format in a virtual retreat, and then work on it for the rest of the program as well. But you can do things like work together to learn the science of emotions, like the brain in the palm of the hand, to investigate what are our tells when we're starting to get upset and our lids are starting to flip. Which coping tools work for each family member? Let's try them all out. Let's build a calm down corner full of really nice things that make us feel like we can calm down and regain control and feel safe and cozy and secure again and ready for try again. What are some specific conflict resolution tools that work really well? And what are the top 4? There are 4 that are really good in particular that we can always choose from when we hit a conflict. And that way we don't necessarily get stuck and not have any other option but hitting. So these are opportunities you can start doing family meetings and having debriefs and revisiting and resetting and try again with 7 to 9-year-olds. Like, absolutely. They are in the age of wanting to be co-designers and co-authors and leaders of their little societies, whether it's a classroom little society or their little home life, if it's even with one other person, just one caregiver, or if it's a team of 10 at home across many households, maybe. They like to influence how things go. They like to be a part of the solution. They like to have input. They like to have agency, and they want to feel empowered and seen. And so there's this whole opportunity to kind of up-level our parenting at this age. When I worked with 6 to 9-year-old parents of 6 to 9-year-olds for 10 years, directly, daily, one of the things I always had to work with the parents, no matter what age, they joined my classroom community, it was like making sure that they're actually parenting to the age of their child. Because I find it more in this age of like 6 to 9-year-olds, the parents tend to be 6 months to 2 years behind in their parenting approach. On average, parents are 6 months to 2 years behind. And that makes sense because once we figure out a stage, we figure out what works, they're already on to the next stage. They're already 6 months to 2 years ahead of us. And it's really hard to keep up without having tools and mentorship and community and other examples to kind of draw from to make sure we're hitting the mark and developmentally. Yeah. And so one of the most important things you can do with older children, whether that's Laura and Meliana, Anne, Mandy, and others, is to make sure you're parenting at a level where you really are starting to collaborate with them and give them influence and give them agency, because focusing and listening are more of a symptom or an outcome of you and they them being in tandem and synced up like a team, where you're really working towards things together. And of course, that could happen in small ways first and build up to really like seamless teamwork. Sometimes you don't even get to seamless teamwork, but you get at least 50% of the time, and that's pretty good. So I'm wondering what stands out to you and what in particular you want your children to focus on or listen about. Because I would have different tips for, I want you to establish the teamwork and that side-by-side approach, different tips for homework, different tips for bedtime on time, different tips for following the screen time expectations, different tips for how to handle, sibling and or friend conflicts, right? And that's what I build into my work with my program. And that's why the immersion exists, because we cover all of this, right? Those of you who are curious about the immersion, by the way, I do have some session times open on my calendar. And if you have not yet in the last 6 months met with me, you can have a 30-minute strategy session with me. It'll also be a chance for you to take the quiz and help me get to know your strengths and where you are now. And then if it's a fit, it's a great time to jump into the year-long immersion, because it's early bird. You'll get 2 months of early access to coaching and your bonus courses. And you can even spread out payments if you choose a payment plan so that your monthly budget will be less impacted. So it's just a great time to chat with me. If you've ever thought about jumping into a program and having a mentor, now's the time. All right. Now back to questions. So thinking about like navigating turbulent times with a 7-year-old, or setting up good work habits, or how to get them to focus and listen, you're going to want to figure out like what is a particular motivator for your child. And you can do that collaboratively with a 7 to 9-year-old, even with 5 and 6-year-olds. You can start to think like, oh, does it make a huge difference if we add in, make it a game and make it fun, or is it really about having good company and doing that like relatedness hack, where having someone along the journey with you is everything. And is there a way we can fill up your attention cup with some one-on-one time? It's just really customized based on your kid. And what I'm all about is like, let's give you the 5 options and then you go test it out and see which 1 or 2 or maybe 3 end up really sticking for your child. Okay. I did want to circle back to Tony a little bit too, because Kelly also has a question about PTSD. Now, what we need to know about PTSD is that it's not the same for everybody. There's diversity with how people experience it and what they do with it, in terms of care and how it manifests. So I just really want to make sure that you have the opportunity to, wrap your head around it. We have a question from Kelly about PTSD too. I guess her children have experienced some real adversity and they are having PTSD symptoms as well and difficulty regulating their emotions. So some of the things that you need to do are like really secure your bond with a child, making sure that they get the same consistent message that no matter what emotion they're experiencing, how they're behaving, whether they're doing their chores or not, whether they're doing well in school or not, whether they're living up to your expectations, you love them and they belong. You love them and they belong no matter what. They still get to have your love and attention. They still get to have your admiration for the things they do well. You don't withhold those things from kids, especially when they're experiencing PTSD, and you don't withhold them from yourself if you are the one who is also having triggers and PTSD. In other words, you don't make a black and white world for them or for yourself ever, especially with trauma, okay? Because what they need to understand is that there's nuance to everything. And that really helps with anxiety. It really helps them to make sense of their traumatic experiences and reintegrate any part of themselves that may be kind of testing the waters to see if it's safe to come back and be a whole unit again. So that sense of love and belonging is so powerful. There's a lot of ways to do that. You can really get to know their character strengths and really amplify and recognize when they use them and name them and help them name them for themselves too, and recognize them in themselves. And that can look any way, like there's all the 5 love languages. You can show them by giving them gifts that play to their strengths. You can give them words of affirmation and praise when you see them using their strengths. You can, spend quality time doing things with them well in their strength zone. But I need to speak to that one. A lot of us get a little stuck when it comes to sort of filling up our kids' love cups because our kids are really interested in activities that we don't enjoy. But I'm telling you, wherever your kid is hanging out and really putting a lot of time and attention is where you need to figure out a way to be comfortable hanging out too. This is the lowest friction way to get into their world, is to take an interest in their interests, even if it's not something that you have kind of even rigidly identified as not into, like sports or singing or video games or something, right? Dolls, ponies, whatever it is, get into it, become a geek with them. That's a huge, huge, huge help in terms of building a relationship with them and helping them feel like you're in it with them and you get it and you're safe. The other thing is you can build in mini routines that are incredibly comforting. And I'm thinking of Kelly in particular, but this is for anybody, where if you know that you or the kids are going to be in contact with the trigger of their anxiety, make sure you build in routines for like how they're going to transition back into this sense of safety, and build in tons of comfort there and ease. This is not a time to rush them through a transition that's time pressured and stressful. So build it in, fight for it. Even if the schedule doesn't usually allow for it, fight for it. Pick your kid up early if you need to. Pull over and hang out by a park before you go home if you need to. Let the dishes lapse or something, right? Like treat it like it's like you're breathing oxygen. And you'll see when you really commit to that comfort and that reconnection time with your kids, whether it's at the end of the day or after a visit at the other household, it pays off in spades. It's really worth it. Like 30 minutes can have an impact on the next 3 hours kind of thing. Okay. So that time investment, you'll get back. So do it, find a way, put it in the calendar is one of the options for you. Okay. And Tony, I feel like that's for yourself, right? Because if you know you're transitioning straight from work to kids, you're not giving yourself that time to resource yourself, build it in. Give yourself at least 30 minutes. I've had several parents that have taken this advice and they said it was a game changer, that on the way home from work, they actually just pull over and like have something that they can look at, like some trees or some flowers or a body of water. And they just sit there and they do something for themselves that has nothing to do with work, has nothing to do with parenting. And sometimes they even just close their eyes and just breathe for part of that and just see what thoughts are coming up and just kind of be with themselves and see what do I need right now? Oh my gosh, I'm hungry. The things that we ignore. What do I need right now? I need to have a plan for how I'm going to break the news to my kid about this tonight because I'm worried about their tantrum and I just really want to have a plan, their meltdown, whatever it is, right? The other thing is building community and support, where maybe during those windows, you have someone you text with, you have a coach you can drop a note to, you have a recording you can listen to something you've attended in the past that's been supportive of you. It's worth it. If you're going to be a resource to your kids, you need to resource yourselves. Okay. And do it in a way that's time efficient and impactful. Like, don't waste your time kind of pussyfooting around with stuff that you're not sure works. Like, do things that are proven, right? Breathing is proven. Coaching is proven. Peer mentorship is proven. Things that work. Put your time and energy into those things. And when you try them out, see how it impacts you. And if it impacts you, do it more. Do it again, right? I think that's how people end up doing things like committing to, a self-care plan, that they end up joining a program and saying, this is what I want in my life. I want this mentorship. Or they end up, working with somebody that they really love, or they end up cultivating a friendship that lasts for ages. It's because of that clarity of just like picking something and really going for it. So whatever that is for you, don't deny it. Every parent deserves at least 30 minutes a day that's for them, even if it's just being with themselves and thinking about it, right? So give that to yourselves, please. It's you deserve it. And you maybe already know that, and I'm just speaking to the choir here, preaching to the choir, but hey, I think it's worth saying because I can't tell you the number of parents I've met who have slowly over time, incrementally put in, gotten to the place where 99% of their focus is on other people and their responsibilities and their work and their household chores. Like they're not giving themselves time. So way to be here today. You're giving yourself time. This is one version of it: coaching, mentorship, community, and other ways. Like keep discovering and building your self-care practices and your resources, your resource library. Okay. Make sense? Yeah. Okay. I have one more older child question, and it kind of circles back to the beginning, which I don't mind at all. But I do recommend, this is for May. May, I do recommend if you just jump in at this point to go back and listen to the beginning too, because there's a lot of good information there, but I'll add something new. So you said your older child is hitting you all the time. Oh no, May, that's really tough. I'm really sorry that's happening. And for all of you that have been struggling, it's really tough, especially when the kids are bigger in body. It's not a cute tantruming toddler anymore. This is a child that's got some heft to them. They've got some reach. They may be too big for us to pick up, and it gets harder as they get older. So those of you who might be waiting to kind of get on this stuff, don't wait until they're bigger. And those of you who do have bigger kids, it's not too late too. Okay. Both can be true. I just want to speak to that. Well, you're saying here that your big one is actually only 4 years and 9 months. So this question was actually not written properly. Sorry. So I'm going to actually address that, yours with Cataline. Cataline also is here. That's right. You have a question and you're here. Awesome. About cooperation with your 2.5-year-old. Good. Okay. So we can actually put the two of you together. All right. So, let me just say one thing about older kids hitting. You have permission to walk away and make your body safe and tell them that that's what you're doing. When you're no longer able to hold their hands or put them in a bear hold or move their body or, do something physically to them because they're just bigger than you, stronger than you. Maybe you have a bad back and they're not bigger than you, but it's like not in the cards. It's not an option. It's not on the menu. You are allowed to make very strong motion with your own body. And one thing I advised a mom to do, she said was like a game changer for her, was that she would go, I don't like the way you're touching my body right now. I'm moving away until you can use gentle hands. And she put her hand up like this, like in front of her child, and she moved her body away like this. And this is what I advised her, because I've done this in classrooms before. You make yourself space. And you say, sweetie, if you come and try to hit me again, I will move away again. I'd much rather you use gentle hands, right? And like, calm down. If you're not able to, I'm moving away again. And you wait and see what they do. Okay, so you're not ready to be close to my body yet. And they're like, no, I'm ready. Okay, well then give them something to do. Show me by putting them behind your back. Show me by putting them in your pockets. Show me by putting them down by your side. Okay, now we can be close again, right? So when there's that kind of hitting going on all the time, sometimes you can't use your own body to like stop their body from hitting. You need to move your body away. And it is okay to close a door between you and your child if they're coming after you. And what I want you to know is that this is a reasonable response from the environment. Like we have this idea that as a parent, we're supposed to like let kids do anything and get away with anything, but this just doesn't make sense in the end, because what are they learning? That the world it's okay to come after people and they're not like have a strong reaction to it. It's not really helpful in the end. What's more helpful is to have a loving and understanding response alongside something very reasonable, like, I don't want you to, ow, I don't like that, I need to move away if you cannot stop, right? And you can't use a gentler touch. I don't want to be in the same room as someone who's hitting me. I'm going to be in the other room and I'm here for, I get it, you're upset, but I need to make my body safer on the other side of the door. I'm happy to open the door when your body is safe too, right? So you can do that. It's really okay. So please do, if you haven't yet, make that clear. The other thing is continuing to work with all the tools we've been talking about around like helping them identify when their lid is coming off, hopefully catching it sooner, getting some coping strategies for when the lid does come off, testing them out, see what works, helping them understand the science behind the emotion. At age 4 or 9 months, they can start that. Okay. Now, Cataline is here. Hi. Your cooperation with your 2.5-year-old, drop us a note of what are you trying to get your child to cooperate to do? Maybe 1, 2, or 3 things, just let us know. Kathleen from Texas. And I can also just start jamming on it. Well, we'll see if you have a chance to pop that into the chat here, to the comments. So winning cooperation. I love this. It's from Positive Discipline, Jane Nelson. It's something that works. It goes, I mean, the big headline is connect before you correct. I'll say it again, connect before you correct or direct. How many of you love it when someone bursts in the door of your office or your study space or whatever, and then tells you to do something now? Not my favorite, unless it's urgent, like there's a fire, get out of the house, right? How much of you would rather have somebody knock on the door, open it, come in, check in and see what you're actually up to, gauge how available you are, show an interest in what you're doing, and then make a request based on the information they gathered? Yeah. So good, Kathleen. Getting dressed, brushing teeth. Yes, he can do both, but it takes a lot to make it happen. Getting in the car. Yeah, these all make sense. Really common 2.5-year-old power struggles. So it all has to do with making his body do something. So one thing we might want to do is show an interest in how he's doing it, the how. Because whether or not it's happening shouldn't be the focus. Because as soon as you make whether or not it's happening the focus, they have something to say yes or no to in power struggle. So it's not, would you like to brush your teeth, sweetie? I think it might be time. It's, oh my gosh, it's time to brush your teeth. Do you want to use the blue toothpaste or the red toothpaste? I'm just making something up, but oh my gosh, it's time to brush your teeth. Should we hop like froggies or sneak over there like little mice? The how. It's not the what, it's the how, right? What is happening is happening. And they need to feel that from you, and you don't do a whole lot of conversation about whether or not it's happening. So that's number 1 tip. We often do a lot of, oh, it's time to get dressed. Ready to get dressed? Oh, would you like to come over here so we can start with your pants? And we think we're being so friendly and patient and kind, and we can do that unless it doesn't work. And then we got to change it up. So these ones, and one of the things we can do when we offer a how is first get into their world. So we have a sense of what are they even into right now. Toddlers have their own little lives, don't they? They have their own imagination running the show. They will be all about Pokemon, or they'll be all about bears, or they'll be all about trains or whatever, right? And that's the spontaneous activity of imagination in early childhood. It's just where they're at. So what are they into? Animals? Ooh, okay. Shall we walk to the car like elephants with our trunks swinging, or like giraffes with our long necks, making it fun, making it playful, having them have choices, having a high interest. I'm like running through my intrinsic motivation model right now, by the way. We've mostly been working on interest and autonomy, which is what toddlers really need a lot of. Ooh, you know what? I bet we could save this book for when we brush teeth, because I know that sometimes when you brush your teeth, you don't really like it, but maybe this will make it more fun. How about we read about the bears when we're in the bathroom? I'll go put it there now so we can look forward to that. Bringing in something high interest during the activity, really helpful as well to keep his attention. Yeah, so, Kathleen, choices work sometimes. Okay, don't diminish that, okay? Because if choices work sometimes, that is a clue to like how much choices matter to him overall. It matters sometimes, so that's good. So that's something you can keep on rotation. Don't let that one go, okay? You're also saying, but sometimes he comes up with something else, which is much more important. I'm guessing that he wants to do right now, right? So this is where you give the choices, you get into his world first, connect before you correct, try and bring in some motivation hacks. And if all else fails, you just let him know it's time and it's going to happen. And then you might go through the motions of whether he's doing it or you're doing it. Okay, well, it's time to go in the bathroom. I'm happy to read a book and play a game when we're in there, but are you going to put your body in the bathroom, or do I need to help you? And with toddlers, you can do this, and they need you to do this sometimes. Sometimes they just need to know that you're going to follow through no matter what, even if it means picking them up while he complains. Fun for us. And then that can go really badly. And that's when we have to go back to our emotional mastery stuff, the lid, the coping tools, the empathy, the following through anyways, the break from the trigger and come back. Like there's a whole move it or lose it, right? So we can come back to those pieces. But what I'd say is, if you've already tried the things, now it's time to just follow through and deal with the fallout, because guess what toddlers need to know? That at the end of the day, after you do all the song and dance, you mean it when you ask for things, and you are going to follow through. And sometimes that's all they're doing, is actually testing the system. They don't even know they're doing it. It's a spontaneous activity of children to test the system. So you're giving them answers, and they don't always like the answers, but you're still doing something for them. You're helping them understand how the world works and how society works. And there's only so many times, so many ways a person's going to try and make things easier, better, or more entertaining for you, until you just sometimes have to do it anyway. So then we can, and this is for another time, we can also bring in things like consequences, but generally scaffolding the choices along the way. Oh, you do it or I do it. Okay, looks like I'm doing it. Is that right? And then you start to do it for them. They're like, no, I can do it. Okay, then show me. And then, oh, since you're not showing me, I'll count to 3. And then if you're not showing me, if you're not blinking, if you're not walking towards the bathroom, then I'll pick you up. All right, your choice. 1, 2, okay, fine. And then they walk, good. And you can praise them along the way for making the choice you like. Oh, I wish I didn't have to count to 3, but we made it into the bathroom. Great. Glad you could use those feet to get us here. Now what can we do with the toothbrush? Next thing. And sometimes it just goes that way. And our job is to be this like coach through, life's inconveniences. They kind of feel like this is getting in the way of my play. It's like, yeah, life 101. We don't get to play all day. There are things we need to do too. Responsibilities, chores, considering the needs of others, pitching in, things that he'll continue to learn. Last but not least, if your 2.5-year-old is not cooperating a lot, do it first. Be willing to go first. Do it first and just don't give him attention. Just go do it and make it a party and let him know how great it was, and see if he is bored because you're no longer in a power struggle with him. Sometimes that's all it takes. So I used to say to this one mom, oh, she doesn't want to make the calendar with you? Well, how about one night you just bust out the art supplies and start working on it and turn on some music and make it a party. And she's going to say, what are you doing over there? Like, oh, you can come check it out if you want. This is really fun. And then just keep, and sure enough, her incredibly oppositional 10-year-old wandered over and was giving her suggestions over her shoulder, and then picked up a marker and started illustrating the entire thing. So that can work too. Cataline, I'm so glad you're here. Terry, way to drop in for more mentorship and support in addition to your immersion. Laura, loved your comments and questions. Everybody who participated in the questions, I'm just going to do one last skim to make sure I got everybody. Yes, I got everybody's questions, I do believe. Yeah, okay. You all are amazing because you're parents and you're here. I know that. You're big-hearted folks seeking solutions. That means so much to me that you showed up, and I would really love for you to go ahead and let other folks know that this resource exists. And if there are any of you that are at all in any way drawn to getting more one-on-one support, I invite you to take me up on this complimentary 30-minute session where we'll go over what is the hardest thing right now, what you might work on next in a customized way, okay? That's what the parent strategy session's for. It's also a chance for us to check out and see if it's a good fit for us to work together. And so I just recommend you go ahead and jump on my calendar while I have spots open, and while it's an opportune time to see if it's a good time to join the next cohort of the immersion. We're going to be kicking off in July and just having an amazing time with beautiful families, all wanting change, all with their own unique struggles, but with the same goal, which is, building that lifelong relationship and raising happy, confident, resilient kids who know they're loved and that they belong. So good work today, everybody. You're welcome. Yeah, seeing some nice comments coming into the chat. Appreciate that too. You all take care until next time. We'll be back for a Monday Mindset Moment next Monday at noon. So feel free to join us for that as well. All right, lots of love to everybody. Goodbye for now.